Hello. We're going to read chapter 8. It's from Aki's perspective in Boston, Arizona. One kind word can warm 3 winter months. That's the Japanese proverb that starts at the beginning. One thing you could share when you're writing your response is what you think that means. One kind word can warm 3 winter months. Aki, Boston, Arizona. Shh, Seiko whispered to someone as he shut the door. Don't wake up my little sister. Hi, yes, another male voice said. Aki felt a blast of frigid February air. Boston's cruel weather included both extremes. Sweltering summers and winter lows well below freezing. So it gets crazy hot and freezing cold. The flimsy walls of the barracks did little to keep out either hot or cold. Aki breathed slow and deep, pretending to sleep. Though she faced the wall, she had recognized the voice of Isoi, her brother's friend. Are you going to fill it out? Isoi asked. I guess we have to, Seiko said. Aki guessed they were talking about the leave clearance application, a questionnaire that had just been distributed to everyone at camp over age 17. Seiko had gotten one. He had recently turned 18. So they've been there for a couple of years now, right? I don't know what they want us to say, Isoi said. I don't want to say the wrong thing in case it's some kind of trick. A trick? Seiko asked, to test our loyalty. I haven't read it yet. Isn't it just a list of questions? It's not that easy, Isoi said. Question 27 asks if we're willing to serve in the armed forces of the United States on combat duty, wherever ordered. So this is some kind of questionnaire they're having to fill out, and it's asking them questions about, like, would they be willing to join the military? Whoa, sorry. And would they be willing to fight for the army? Aki heard Isoi slap some papers onto the table. I'm willing to serve my country, he said. I'm willing to fight. Then why not answer yes? Aki wondered. But not against Japan, the young man went on. Not in Japan. My grandparents, my cousins, they still live there. Aki understood. He might be fighting against his family. How could this government, any government, ask such a terrible thing? And if you don't answer yes, Seiko said, then you'll be considered a traitor of the United States. Traitor means somebody who goes against the side that they're on, that they betray somebody. What kind of a choice is that? Aki asked herself. Cold blasted across the room again. Aki's mother had returned from the latrine. Isoi, she said. Good evening. It's late, Seiko said. Let me read this over and we'll talk about it in the morning. Isoi said good night and left. Seiko sighed heavily. Aki heard him flip the paper over. At one point, he slammed down the pen. Go to bed, their mother murmured. We will talk in the morning. Aki heard Seiko drop onto his bed. A moment later, he was back up, pacing the room. What is the matter? Aki knew her brother would not have to struggle with the question that bothered Isoi. Seiko could not serve in the military. He had suffered from polio as a child and walked with a significant limp. Polio is an illness that we don't see as much anymore because now there's a vaccine for it. But there was a period of time where lots of people suffered from polio, and it left people with permanent injuries. This is wrong, Seiko said to his mother. I am an American. How dare they ask me that? Shh, your sister. What is the problem? Question 28. Seiko's voice was an angry whisper. It says, will you swear unqualified allegiance to the United States of America and faithfully defend the United States from any or all attacks by foreign or domestic forces, and forswear any form of allegiance or obedience to the Japanese emperor or any other foreign government, power, or organization? Seiko took a long breath. What nerve! I'm imprisoned in this camp, being denied my rights as a U.S. citizen. And at the same time, I'm being asked to deny my loyalty to any other group. Are we still U.S. citizens? Aki realized she didn't know. What am I supposed to do? Seiko asked. Aki felt sorry for her brother and torn in two herself. No longer fully American, yet not Japanese either. Not quite a prisoner, and not quite free. She felt lost in the desert, wandering between a past that was gone and a future that stretched before her, barren as the land surrounding them. You must do what you think is right, their mother replied softly. Seiko sat at the table and filled out the form without another word. Aki could only hear the chair scrape the floor and his pen scratching the paper. Eventually, he sighed again. Sorry for moving the computer. It's very wobbly today. Put down the pen and returned to bed. As May burned hot over Poston, Seiko lined up a job at a foundry in Denver as part of a work release program. He planned to save as much of his pay as possible so that the family would have money to start over when they were free. Before her brother left Poston, Aki would have said that she could not possibly stand another separation, but she had been truly too amazed to learn what her heart could bear when it had no choice but to keep on beating. Aki and her mother accompanied Seiko to the administration building on the day he and about a dozen other young men left. She did not cry when Seiko said, "Well, I guess this is it." She did not cry when he hugged her and lifted her off the ground for what might be the last time for a long while. She did not cry when she heard her mother let out a whimper. She tried to imagine a future, a not too distant future, when the war would be over and the entire family, she and Seiko and Mom and Pop, would be together again, when they would go back to the farm and things would be the way they used to be, the way they were supposed to be. That's all she could do these days, it seemed. Just imagine and believe and wait. And that's the end of chapter 8. It is quite short. A couple of the things that I was thinking about as we were reading, it didn't tell us exactly how Seiko felt, but we knew how Seiko felt about the questions, right? I don't know how he chose to answer them, but we knew he was angry about them. And there's a lot of evidence that shows it. Things like he was shouting about it. He was saying things like, "How dare they?" When he was writing, he took his pen, he slammed it down. So without telling us that he was angry, the author was showing us that he was angry. I know you guys are reading a lot of other books right now at home. As you're reading, look for ways that you know how somebody is feeling without being told directly, like what evidence you have. We'll find ways to share those thoughts later on. Okay, go ahead and go to the spreadsheet in Google Classroom, click on chapter 8 and fill in your questions or comments.